Giuseppe Garibaldi was a revolutionary leader and military strategist whose fearless campaigns played a decisive role in the unification of Italy. A symbol of freedom and resistance, he became known as the "hero of two worlds" for his contributions to revolutionary movements in both Europe and South America. His daring military expeditions, particularly the expedition of the 1860, led to the overthrow of foreign and monarchical rule in southern Italy, bringing the dream of a unified nation closer to reality. Garibaldi was not just a warrior but a man driven by deep nationalist ideals, inspiring countless others to fight for independence and self-determination. His legacy remains one of courage, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to the cause of a free and united Italy. Early life and journey to revolution. Garibaldi's early years were deeply influenced by the maritime world, as his family was engaged in coastal trade, sparking his lifelong connection to the sea. His travels took him to Istanbul, where he lived in the Pera district from 1828 to 1832, working as an instructor in Italian, French, and mathematics. During this period, he became involved with the Sardinian exile network, forming ties with influential figures such as Giovanni Timoteo Colosso. In April 1833, he voyaged to Taganrog in the Russian Empire aboard the schooner Clorinda. There, he encountered Giovanni Battista Cuneo, a member of Giuseppe Mazzini's Young Italy movement, an organization devoted to the unification of Italy through liberal republican ideals. Later that year, Garibaldi met Mazzini himself in Genoa, forging a relationship that would shape his revolutionary path. Enthralled by Mazzini's vision, he joined the Carbonari, a secret revolutionary society. In February 1834, he took part in an unsuccessful insurrection in Piedmont, marking his first major attempt to challenge the status quo. Exile and South American campaigns. Following his failed revolutionary activities in Italy, Garibaldi sought refuge abroad, first in Tunis and eventually in Brazil, where he joined the Ragamuffin War, 1835, fighting for the independence of the Rio Grandense Republic from the Brazilian Empire. It was during this time that he met Ana Maria de Jesus Ribeiro da Silva, famously known as Anita Garibaldi, who became his partner in both life and battle. When the rebels declared the Catarinense Republic in 1839, Anita fought beside him aboard his ship Rio Pardo and in key battles such as in Bituba and Laguna. By 1841, Garibaldi and Anita relocated to Montevideo, Uruguay, where he worked as a trader and schoolmaster. The couple married in 1842 and had 4 children. During this period, Garibaldi adopted the distinctive attire that would become his trademark, a red shirt, poncho, and wide-brimmed hat, inspired by the gauchos of South America. Role in the Uruguayan Civil War. In 1842, Garibaldi was appointed commander of the Uruguayan fleet and raised an Italian legion, composed of fellow exiles. Montevideo had a significant Italian population, which enabled him to recruit soldiers for his cause. The legion adopted a black flag with a volcano, symbolizing the dormant power of Italy awaiting its awakening. Though sources differ on when his men first donned red shirts, many believe they were initially acquired in Montevideo, originally intended for Argentine slaughterhouse workers. Garibaldi aligned with the Uruguayan Colorados and the Argentine Unitarian Party, receiving indirect support from France and Britain against the Blancos, who were backed by the Argentine dictator Juan Manuel de Rosas. Between 1842 and 1848, Garibaldi led numerous battles, including the occupation of Colonia del Sacramento and Motín Garcia Island in 1845. His tactics were often unconventional, employing amphibious guerrilla warfare, which earned him significant victories such as the Battle of Cerro and the Battle of San Antonio del Santo in 1846. Despite suffering a defeat at Costa Brava in 1842, Garibaldi's reputation as a fearless and strategic commander grew. His escape was made possible by the Argentine Admiral William Brown, who reportedly prevented his execution, declaring, "Let him go, that gringo is a brave man." In gratitude, Garibaldi would later name one of his grandsons William in honor of Brown. Path to Freemasonry and the next chapter. As his military career progressed, Garibaldi was inducted into Freemasonry, an organization that shared his ideals of liberty and national unity. His experiences in South America forged him into a battle-hardened revolutionary, preparing him for the pivotal role he would later play in Italy's unification movement. During his exile, Garibaldi found refuge within the Freemason lodges, which often served as sanctuaries for political dissidents. In 1844, at the age of 37, he was initiated into the Asilo de la Virtud Lodge in Montevideo, an unrecognized branch of Brazilian Freemasonry. While he had little regard for elaborate Masonic rituals, he viewed Freemasonry as a global network of progressive thinkers, bound by ideals of liberty and fraternity. His affiliation with the order deepened over time, leading to his election as the Grand Master of the Grand Orient of Italy. Later in 1844, Garibaldi regularized his status by joining the Les Amis de la Patrie Lodge in Montevideo, which was officially recognized under the Grand Orient of France. Hopes for reform and the call of Italy. Despite his years abroad, Garibaldi's heart remained tied to the fate of Italy. The election of Pope Pius IX in 1846 sparked widespread optimism among Italian patriots, as his early reforms suggested a shift toward liberalism. Encouraged by these developments, Garibaldi wrote to the Pope, pledging his willingness to fight for him, believing that Pius IX might become the champion of Italian unity. Giuseppe Mazzini, from exile, also praised the Pope's initial policies. In 1847, Garibaldi offered his Italian Legion services to the Vatican through its representative in Rio de Janeiro, but before any agreement could be reached, Italy was shaken by the Sicilian Revolution of 1848. Inspired by these events and the growing revolutionary fervor across the Italian peninsula, Garibaldi gathered 60 of his most loyal fighters and set sail for his homeland, ready to join the struggle for national liberation. Return to Italy and the First Italian War of Independence. As revolution swept through the Italian states in 1848, Garibaldi aligned himself with the newly formed Action Party, dedicated to the cause of Italian unification. He offered his services to King Charles Albert of Sardinia, who was initially sympathetic to the nationalist cause but regarded Garibaldi with suspicion. Rejected by the Sardinian monarchy, Garibaldi and his followers moved to Lombardy, where they fought alongside the provisional government of Milan against the Austrian occupation. During the First Italian War of Independence, Garibaldi led his legion of volunteers in battles at Luino and Morazzone, securing minor victories against Austrian forces. However, his efforts could not turn the tide of war, and following Piedmont's defeat at the Battle of Novara on the 23rd of March, 1849, Garibaldi shifted his focus to Rome, where revolutionaries had proclaimed the Roman Republic in defiance of the Papal States. The defense of Rome. With the French army under Louis Napoleon threatening to crush the fledgling Roman Republic, Mazzini urged Garibaldi to take command of its defense. Leading a ragtag army, Garibaldi initially achieved a stunning victory at Porta San Pancrazio on the 30th of April, 1849, repelling a much larger French force. However, as reinforcements poured in, the siege of Rome began on the 1st of June, and despite the valiant resistance of Garibaldi's troops, the city fell by the 29th of June. As the Roman assembly debated whether to surrender or continue fighting, Garibaldi, blooded from battle, made a passionate speech, advocating retreat into the Apennine Mountains to wage a guerrilla war against the Austrians. He famously declared, "Ovunque noi saremo, sarà Roma." Wherever we will go, that will be Rome. On the 2nd of July, 1849, Garibaldi withdrew from Rome with 4,000 troops, pursued relentlessly by Austrian, French, Spanish, and Neapolitan forces. His dream of rallying a popular uprising in central Italy soon faded, and his numbers dwindled. After an arduous march, he found brief sanctuary in San Marino, with only 250 loyal followers remaining by his side. During the retreat, tragedy struck. Anita Garibaldi, pregnant with their 5th child, fell gravely ill and died near Comacchio, marking one of the darkest moments of Garibaldi's life. With his forces scattered and Italy still under foreign rule, Garibaldi once again faced exile, but his struggle for Italian unification was far from over. North America and the Pacific, a wandering captain. Forced into exile once again, Garibaldi found temporary refuge in Porto Venere, near La Spezia, but the Piedmontese government pressured him to leave Italy. Seeking a new path, he traveled to Tangier, where he was hosted by Francesco Carpanetto, a wealthy Italian merchant. Carpanetto proposed financing a merchant ship for Garibaldi to command, a venture that would provide him with a livelihood while his revolutionary dreams remained out of reach. To acquire the ship, Garibaldi set sail for New York, arriving on the 30th of July, 1850. However, financial support failed to materialize, leaving him stranded in the bustling American metropolis. He found himself among fellow Italian exiles and Masonic circles, where he encountered Freemasons with strong anti-papal sentiments and socialist leanings. Struggling to sustain himself, Garibaldi took on work at Antonio Meucci's candle factory on Staten Island, though he found little satisfaction in the trade. The small cottage where he lived remains preserved today as the Garibaldi Memorial on the U.S. National Register of Historic Places. Yearning for adventure and a return to the sea, he left New York in April 1851 alongside Carpenetto, who was expanding his business operations in Central America. Voyages across the Pacific. Garibaldi and Carpenetto journeyed to Nicaragua, passing through various regions before reaching Lima, Peru, where Carpenetto was awaiting the arrival of a shipment. Along the way, Garibaldi paid a visit to Manuela Sáenz, the famed revolutionary and former lover of Simón Bolívar. In Lima, Garibaldi's reputation preceded him, earning him a warm reception from the local Italian community. He was soon offered command of the Carmen, a merchant ship owned by Pietro de Nigri, a wealthy Italian-Peruvian merchant. To captain the vessel, he secured Peruvian citizenship in 1851. Sailing under his new flag, Garibaldi embarked on a voyage to the Chincha Islands to transport guano, a highly valuable fertilizer. From there, he set course for Canton, China, arriving in April 1852. His travels took him further to Xiamen and Manila, before he navigated the Indian Ocean and South Pacific, eventually rounding the southern coast of Australia. During this expedition, he made landfall on Three Hummock Island in the Bass Strait. His second major voyage took him from Chile to the United States, carrying a shipment of copper and wool around Cape Horn. Arriving in Boston, he soon returned to New York, only to receive a hostile letter from de Nigri, which led him to resign his command. At this juncture, another Italian, Captain Figori, had arrived in the United States to purchase a ship. Figori hired Garibaldi for the task, and together they acquired the Commonwealth in Baltimore. In November 1853, Garibaldi bid farewell to New York for the last time, sailing the Commonwealth to London before continuing on to Newcastle upon Tyne, where he loaded a final cargo of coal. This chapter of Garibaldi's life, marked by restlessness and maritime adventure, was drawing to a close. The sea had provided him with refuge, but Italy still called to him, and before long, he would return to the struggle for his homeland's unification. Tyneside, a hero's welcome. The Commonwealth reached Tyneside on the 21st of March, 1854, where Garibaldi's reputation as a revolutionary had already made him a beloved figure among the local working class. He was greeted with enthusiasm by the people of Newcastle and South Shields, though he declined an invitation to dine with city dignitaries, preferring to keep his distance from official ceremonies. During his brief stay, Garibaldi resided in Tynemouth as Huntingdon Place before moving to South Shields, where he remained for over a month. Before his departure at the end of April 1854, he was presented with an inscribed sword, a token of appreciation for his fight for freedom. This very sword would later be wielded by his grandson, Giuseppe Garibaldi II, while serving as a British volunteer in the Second Boer War. From Tyneside, Garibaldi set sail for Genoa, finally returning to Italy on the 10th of May, 1854, marking the end of his 5-year exile. The Second Italian War of Independence, 1859. Settling back in Italy, Garibaldi used an inheritance from his late brother to purchase half of the island of Caprera, north of Sardinia. He dedicated himself to agriculture and a simpler life, but his time away from revolution would be brief. In 1859, the political climate shifted once more as the Second Italian War of Independence broke out, pitting Sardinia and France against Austria. Garibaldi was appointed a major general and formed an elite unit of volunteers, the Hunters of the Alps, Cacciatori delle Alpi. It was during this time that he abandoned his loyalty to Mazzini's republican ideals, realizing that the Sardinian monarchy was the most practical force to unify Italy. His forces secured victories at Varese, Como, and other battles, helping push Austria out of northern Italy. Yet, despite these triumphs, Garibaldi was deeply angered by the Treaty of Turin, 1860, in which his home city of Nice, Nizza, was ceded to France in exchange for Napoleon III's military aid. As a deputy in Piedmont's parliament, Garibaldi vehemently denounced Cavour for this betrayal. The loss of Nice would fuel his lifelong advocacy for Italian irredentism, and in 1871, he actively supported the Nicod Vespers, a nationalist uprising against French rule. The campaign of 1860, the Expedition of the Thousand. In early 1860, as Garibaldi was still reeling from the loss of Nice, his personal life took a tumultuous turn. On the 24th of January, he married 18-year-old Giuseppina Raimondi, only to abandon her the very same day upon learning that she was pregnant by another man. Meanwhile, uprisings in Messina and Palermo against the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies presented a new opportunity for revolution. With 1,000 volunteers, known as I Mil, the Thousand, or simply the Redshirts, he set sail from Genoa on the 5th of May, landing at Marsala, Sicily, on the 11th of May. At the Battle of Calatafimi, the 15th of May, 1860, Garibaldi's 800 men achieved a stunning victory over 1,500 Bourbon troops using a daring uphill bayonet charge. Despite being outnumbered, Garibaldi recognized that the hill's terraces would provide cover for his advancing men. His strategy worked, securing the first major victory of the campaign. Allegedly, Garibaldi turned to his lieutenant, Nino Bixio, and declared, "Chi si fa l'Italia, o si mio. Here we either make Italy, or we die." From that moment, Garibaldi's campaign gained unstoppable momentum. The Neapolitan soldiers began defecting, and rumors spread that their commander, Francesco Landi, had been bribed to surrender. By the 27th of May, Garibaldi's army had reached Palermo, where local insurgents rose up in his favor. However, Neapolitan reinforcements bombarded the city, devastating its population. At this critical moment, a British admiral brokered a truce, allowing the Neapolitan forces to surrender peacefully. Marching north, the unification of Italy. With Palermo secured, Garibaldi's legendary status skyrocketed. By July, his forces had conquered most of Sicily, winning a hard-fought Battle of Milazzo. Crossing the Strait of Messina, Garibaldi continued his march northward toward Naples, encountering little resistance as entire cities welcomed him as a liberator. On the 7th of September, 1860, he triumphantly entered Naples by train, greeted by cheering crowds. However, the Neapolitan army remained intact, leading to the decisive Battle of Volturno, the 30th of September, 1860. Despite his 24,000 Redshirts, Garibaldi struggled against the reorganized 25,000 Neapolitan troops. The battle reached a stalemate until the Royal Sardinian army arrived to reinforce him. At this point, Cavour and the Piedmontese government grew anxious. They feared Garibaldi would march on Rome, which might provoke French military intervention. Sardinian forces had already conquered most of the Papal States, but they deliberately avoided Rome to prevent a conflict with Napoleon III. Garibaldi resented Cavour, whom he accused of betrayal over Nice, but he remained loyal to King Victor Emmanuel II, seeing him as the only viable leader of a unified Italy. On the 26th of October, 1860, Garibaldi met the king at Tino, famously hailing him as a king of Italy. In a final act of selflessness, Garibaldi rode into Naples at the king's side on the 7th of November before quietly retreating to Caprera. Refusing any rewards, titles, or power, he returned to his island home, having accomplished what many thought impossible, the unification of southern Italy under the rule of Victor Emmanuel II. Yet, Garibaldi's story was far from over. His dream of a fully united Italy, one that included Venice and Rome, remained unfulfilled. Garibaldi's influence beyond Italy. As Italy inched toward unification, Garibaldi's legend grew far beyond Europe, inspiring revolutionaries and freedom fighters around the world. When the American Civil War broke out in 1861, his reputation was so immense that the 39th New York Volunteer Infantry Regiment was named the Garibaldi Guard in his honor. The U.S. government recognized his military prowess, and in July 1861, Secretary of State William H. Seward extended an invitation for him to serve as a major general in the Union Army. However, when Henry Shelton Sanford, U.S. Minister to Belgium, met with Garibaldi on the 9th of September, 1861, the general made two key demands. 1. Full command of the Union forces. 2. A declaration of the abolition of slavery. At the time, Abraham Lincoln was not yet prepared to make emancipation a war goal, so negotiations fell apart. Nevertheless, Garibaldi's staunch support for the Union significantly boosted Northern morale. When Lincoln finally issued the Emancipation Proclamation, 1863, Garibaldi praised him in a letter, declaring, "Posterity will call you the great emancipator, a more enviable title than any crown could be, and greater than any merely mundane treasure." His internationalism wasn't limited to the US, he also sought to form an international legion, a force of French, Poles, Swiss, Germans, and other nationalities, to spread liberation movements across Europe. The movement adopted the motto, "Free from the Alps to the Adriatic." Garibaldi's next target was clear: Rome. Underscore 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 underscore. The 1862 expedition against Rome. Though Italy was unified in name, two key territories remained outside its control. 1. Venice, under Austrian rule. 2. Rome, the Papal State, protected by Napoleon III's French garrison. Garibaldi, a fierce anticlericalist, saw papal rule as oppressive and outdated, while his former ally, Giuseppe Mazzini, still dreamed of turning Italy into a republic rather than a monarchy under Victor Emmanuel II. Frustrated with the government's inaction, Garibaldi prepared to march on Rome himself. Declaring Roma o mort, Rome or death, as his battle cry, he gathered 2,000 volunteers in Palermo and sailed for Messina in June 1862. However, the Sicilian garrison, still loyal to Victor Emmanuel, blocked his path. Undeterred, Garibaldi rerouted to Catania, where he made a dramatic declaration. "I shall enter Rome as a victor or perish beneath its walls." On the 14th of August, 1862, he and his followers landed at Melito di Porto Salvo and began their march through the Calabrian mountains. Underscore 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 underscore. The Battle of Aspremont, a painful betrayal. While Garibaldi expected secret support from the Italian government, Victor Emmanuel II feared that an attack on Rome would provoke France into war. He ordered General Enrico Cialdini to stop Garibaldi's advance. On the 28th of August, 1862, Garibaldi's force encountered the Italian army under Colonel Emilio Pallavicini in the Aspremont Mountains. Garibaldi refused to fire on fellow Italians, but a single shot from the government troops triggered a brief skirmish. A few of his men were killed, and Garibaldi himself was shot in the foot. Seeing their leader wounded, his volunteers surrendered. In Washington, D.C., a bust of Garibaldi is displayed at the entrance of the old Supreme Court chamber in the United States Capitol building, a gift from the Italian Society of Washington, recognizing his contributions to the cause of liberty. Statues and memorials across the world. Garibaldi's likeness is immortalized in statues across Italy and beyond, including the monument on the Janiculum Hill in Rome, where he is depicted on horseback. Numerous statues in Italian squares, often alongside representations of the Handshake of Tino, the symbolic meeting where he handed over his conquests to King Victor Emmanuel II. Statues in France, Uruguay, Argentina, the United States, and other countries, demonstrating his international hero status. In Athens, Greece, the Freemason Lodge Giuseppe Garibaldi, number 130, was established in 1980 to honor his struggles for freedom and the Redshirts' assistance in Greek wars. It remains active under the Grand Lodge of Greece. Garibaldi's influence in sports. The English football club Nottingham Forest chose their red home colours in 1865 as a tribute to Garibaldi's Redshirts. The Garibaldi School in Nottinghamshire, England, also bears his name. The Giuseppe Garibaldi Trophy is awarded to the winner of the annual Six Nations rugby match between Italy and France. Cultural tributes and everyday references. Garibaldi's influence extends into popular culture, even in unexpected places. The Garibaldi biscuit, a fruit-filled biscuit still popular today. The Garibaldi cocktail, made with orange juice and Campari. A style of beard, inspired by his distinctive facial hair. In nature. The Garibaldi fish, a bright red-orange damselfish, was named in honor of his Redshirts. The hoverfly species, Sphyxomorpha garibaldii, was described and named after him following his victory at the Battle of Varese. Even in South America, where he fought in Uruguay's War for Independence, Garibaldi is remembered. His face appeared on a 10-peso banknote in Uruguay in 1887. The Brazilian football club Associação Garibaldi de Esportes is named after him. A name that stands for freedom. From warships to sports teams, statues to biscuits, Garibaldi's name remains a symbol of courage, revolution, and unity. His legendary status spans continents, ensuring that his legacy as a fighter for the oppressed and a champion of liberty will never be forgotten.